What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So as y'all know, with the big update, we did end up getting the new custom mode here with every single playlist. Now with this though, I did actually want to talk about the amount of races with having the custom mode in the game, and also the amount of races in the crew too. Now I did end up seeing a ton of people going, yo, there's actually a lot more races in Motorfest now than there is in the crew too. But here's the thing, guys, I have to be honest here and say that is simply not true. Now, the reason why I do say that though is yes, there is going to be a ton of different configurations. Like, yeah, you're going to be able to drive so many different cars in every single playlist if you want. Like, you can use Street Tier 1, Tier 2, as you can see here, Dragster, at least for the only dragster event in the game. You also have Hypercar, Alpha GP, and so on. The thing is, though, most of these races in the game already had the option to do this before the update. I do know a lot of people probably knew that, but then again, guys, the funny part is, I actually went through most of these playlists here and did many of the events using Rally Raid Motocross to level up my vehicles a long time ago. I was actually going through most of these playlists after they updated it. I was using a Demolition Derby car in certain races. I was using all kinds of stuff in these. The thing is, though, that people were saying, like, yo, there's over 1,000 different races in the game now. Like, yeah, I mean, yes, but the thing is, though, also no. Like, for example, guys, if we go to the map, though, simply head over to filters, then go over to events. Now, as you'll see right there, there's going to be 182 events in Motorfest. Like, that's actually going to be a pretty decent amount. Now, the thing is, though, a lot of people are like, yo, that's a lot of races. Like, if you include the custom mode, there is way more. Like, that is kind of going to be slightly true, but the thing is, though, 182 base events. Now, with this, though, you can actually see how many base events are for every single category. Now, the thing is, once again, I do understand that, yes, the custom mode allows you to basically use any of the classes in any of the events, but we're talking about base events here. So, quick example, Street Tier 1 is going to be a total of 33 events. As you guys will see right here, these are basically all the events you would have to mainly use like a Tier 1 vehicle in. Now, here's the thing, though. If you actually head back into the filter and add something like Street Tier 2 to this, you're going to notice that 13 additional events do pop up. That's because all of the other events in the game are also going to be tied to Street Tier 2. The same thing can also be said about Drift, like, yeah, you have the regular Drift events, but you can still use all the Drift cars and all the races as well because they're on the street, right? Now, if we actually head back into this again, though, remove Drift, and let's remove Street Tier 2 and Tier 1, head over to Racing. So there's going to be a total of 8 of these main events. There's going to be this one, then the rest of them are pretty much on the racetrack or in that general area. Now, again, guys, I understand people are going to be like, well, Block, that's not true because you could use the cars in every race. Like, I understand that, but these are the main races for the actual classes. But moving down the list here in the actual vehicle category, let's check out something like Dragster. There is going to be a total of 2 of the races in the entire map, guys. Now, what's funny, though, is I remember someone saying, I don't understand why we need more drag events. They're all the same thing in like a straight line. The thing is, that might be slightly true, but a lot of players don't want to level up a drag car doing the exact same 2 events in the exact same 2 locations. There is actually multiple locations around this island alone to where you could do more drag events that are going to be better straightaways. And I would even say on the new map of Maui, you could easily do some drag events in this location. I mean, there's going to be a drag strip here, or at least an airport that could be a drag strip. Am I right, guys? Like, look right here. That could literally be a drag race right there. You could probably put one on the highway over here or something like that. Probably have one on the road over here. Like, there could be more locations for them. You might even be able to get one on this highway right here, bro. Like, right over in this area. That would be long enough for a drag strip. If we look at something like the inlet there, like the island part, head back over to this location, you will see how long some of these are. They're not all that insane, guys. Look at the length of it. They could easily put more of those in the game. I think that would be pretty dope. Moving down the list, though, we're then going to have the hypercars, which is going to be around 20 main events for the hypercars. But again, though, you can pretty much run every class like Alpha GP, Hypercar, and all of these on every single other event. So technically, there could be more of them. But even with Alpha GP, though, there's only going to be a total of 5 races here on an Alpha GP car. Wouldn't you guys love to see another racetrack being added? I know the Crew 2 had a bunch of them, which, by the way, I am going to jump on that game in a second and show the amount of races in there. To be honest, it's actually pretty shocking. Moving over to the next one, Motocross. So, this is going to be the next one. We're going to have this one here, which is like a trail type of race. We're going to have the ones over here, which is technically not a motocross race. I mean, that I would actually say is going to be more of like a street race, use a motocross bike. There's going to be a few jumps in there. Sure, this is going to be a motorcycle race there, which does show up, and that is definitely going to be drastically different than a motocross race. We're then going to have the boys in the mud here. There's also going to be the race on the actual track, which funnily enough is pretty much one of the only tracks in the game besides I think KTM Strikes Back in the newest playlist that actually has some jumps in there for an actual motocross bike. So I would probably say that's a fairly decent argument that we need more track-based events for those. Like, would you guys also like to have more of the tracks from the Crew 2 that have jumps? I feel like that would be pretty fun. Moving over to Rally Raid, though, we are going to have a total of 23 events. Now, yes, this is the other thing I did want to point out, which I'm going to show this on the new map in a second, of every single race being activated, guys. Let's check something out here. So we all do know the map is newer. Probably not going to be a ton of stuff you can do on it, but let's hit everything real quick. And you are then probably going to notice how there's not that many races at all on the map of Maui. Now, I do understand this map is going to be new, so yeah, they have to add stuff to it. But my goodness, though, guys, there are so many empty things around the new map of Maui, it's a bit concerning. And I do think being able to add more races to this area is going to take forever. I did actually talk about having more boat events and plane events in there. There is an insane amount of off-road areas. They can make so many off-road races. But the biggest issue with the entire thing, I would actually say, is guess what? That is going to be coming down to one thing, and that is the playlist. I think the playlist design is the biggest problem. The reason for that is every single one's going to have to be added. They have to put all kinds of stuff in them, and I feel like they're insanely time-consuming. Whereas the Crew 2, which I'm going to jump on here in a quick second, has a lot more races to offer that are not tied to a playlist. Speaking of that, let's go to Rally, guys. There is going to be a total of 3, yes, 3 events you can actually do for Rally. I don't really know why that's popped up, probably because my thing is, but that's obviously not a Rallycross event. But moving over to the actual event, though, we're going to have Get Dirt on it right here, which is going to be, since the game did come out, we're then going to have a Rallycross race here, which came out in Volume 2 earlier this year. Then we're going to have around the Wild Heart, which is going to be the longest Rallycross race in the game. What's insane about this to me, guys, is we are legitimately over a year into the game, and there is only 3 races for Rally, bro. 3. Like, is that kind of frustrating, man? And we all do know Maui is going to be completely empty over here with legitimately no Rallycross races. But again, I feel like that's going to come down to the fact of the playlist. Like, I think that's going to be the biggest issue. If we were to have some races on Rally, it's probably going to be like, okay, well, we got to add some stuff into the game for like an actual playlist for it, which then is going to mix up that playlist is going to be locked in. And that's the thing. The reason why I say that's the biggest issue, though, is if we are actually getting 1 or even 2 playlists every single season, each of those are probably going to have around, let's say, 6 to 9 events, and we all do know there might maybe be one off-road event in there, maybe a motocross race here and there. There is not going to be that many unless they add a few off-road playlists, focusing on Rally, Rally Raid, and Motocross. The next one I did want to talk about is going to be Monster. This is pretty hilarious. There is only one, guys, which you probably guess is at the same track as the actual dirt bikes, though. So yeah, this is probably not going to be all that different because it's going to be fairly similar to that, but you are at least going to have one monster truck event. Did y'all also notice something? There is no Demolition Derby events in the game at all. Legitimately 0, bro. Now, I also feel like that's an issue because that was a class that was added, and you have no real Demolition Derby events like we saw in the Crew 2, which again, I'm going to show that in a second, but one monster truck event, man, I actually enjoyed doing those weird, like, jump things, spinning around, grabbing the point things in, like, the arenas. I thought that was pretty dope. I do understand it wasn't for everybody, but at least it mixed up the gameplay. Moving over to the next thing is going to be Powerboat and Plane. There's going to be 5 events for each of them. Again, guys, this game has been out over 1 year. You could see how some of the classes are neglected. Funny thing is, I've been seeing a lot of players asking for more plane and boat races, and now that we actually have an entirely new map over here, which is completely empty, bro. Look at that, guys. There is absolutely nothing. Now, again, I do understand they can add stuff in the future, but that's kind of insane. They can easily put probably 10 powerboat races around this island alone, most likely add 1 or 2 more to going over to something like Oahu and Maui. We can easily have around 10 to 15 new plane events going around both islands without a doubt, which I hope it does happen. The reason for that is it would really mix up the overall gameplay so much. We all do know right now most of the events in the game, which you'll see right here, 182 of them, you can run about 90% of the classes on every single event. Like, who's actually going to want to jump into something like, let's say, this race? And when looking at this one, though, you're probably going to notice that it's probably going to be primarily based on something like Tier 2 because you have to use an F40 in it. But yes, you can use basically every single class in this race. So is that truly going to make it actually unique in a way if you can run every class on it? Like, a lot of players are probably going to have to do the same race around 15 times or so, or even more to use every single class in that set event. Don't you guys think that's probably going to get insanely repetitive running around the same events with every single class? I would actually prefer to have more mixed up events for other class. I think it would be really fun. And I feel like a lot of players would agree with it. Now besides this though, let's move over to the Crew 2 and see how many events are in that game compared to Motorfest. Okay, so now that we're actually on the Crew 2, let's check this out right now. So let's move over to filters and move over to events. So right there, we're going to see 362 events. Remember that Motorfest had around 182, which is actually pretty insane, considering we're looking at around 180 more events in this game, which is almost basically doubling it, guys. Like, think about that. That's absolutely insane. But here's what I did want to show, though. So we're going to look at this, guys. One thing I wanted to do, though, is type, actually... Is it discipline? There we go. Okay, so here's street race. There's going to be a total of 87 street race events. Now, I do understand some of these are basically going to be the exact same event, but they are probably going to be the same thing without having AI in there, so there is going to be that. But even then, there are still going to be a lot of races basically spread everywhere. A lot of the events are going to be from other DLCs like this one here. We're also then going to see like the Frozen races as well, which I do know not everybody liked them. But the cool thing is, though, there's also going to be multiple races in each area that have different tracks and stuff. So yes, there is going to be a lot of different races. Now, the first thing I also want to point out is we all do know the Motorfest map is going to be smaller than the Crew 2's map. But personally, though, I do not think that's going to be an excuse to have less events. They can easily fill in all the races, guys, in that one without a doubt. I feel like having a smaller map, you can still pack it full of content. The next thing, though, is then going to be a drift thing here, which is going to be around 16 events. We're going to have the charity here. Now, keep in mind, there's also going to be more than one in each of these, which is also why it's going to say 16. You'll see those 4 there. You'll also see the other ones, but obviously in each one there is more events. The thing in Motorfest is, though, they do actually have a good amount of drift events in the game, which is pretty cool. There's also going to be drift races, which I do really like about it. The only difference thing that I really do like about the Crew 2's drift events compared to Motorfest, though, is all the drift events in that game, most of them anyway, were like the actual drift tracks like this one, is pretty much going to be on a special course they had to add into the map because there was no areas to have the drift things in there. I feel like they could probably add some of the drift things into like Oahu, the cities and all that, going around like the roads. I feel like that could work. Like, we could even go around the suburbs. We saw something like that here in New York with the Upper East Side, so it could probably work. But I do feel like having more events that actually are going to be in the map itself and not a weird design tower outside of it would actually be pretty dope. Now, I feel like they probably did that because of the map size. We didn't have like Las Vegas and stuff, so they couldn't do it. I guess that is going to make sense. On this game, though, we're going to have a total of 9 drag events. And for me, though, what's funny about this is we actually only have around 9 drag events in the Crew 2, which is going to be a decent amount, and they're going to be spread across other areas of the map. The funny thing is, guys, we can easily have 9 drag events in the Crew Motorfest without a doubt. I was showing in that before that there is going to be a lot of locations they could easily add them. We actually had a few different locations in this game where they had 2 different areas for it. You can easily see different parts of Oahu and Maui to where you can easily add drag events to the game. The thing is, they just haven't done it yet. Will they? I'm really hoping they actually will. Besides that, we're then going to have a total of 26 hypercar events. Now, all of these are actually going to pay pretty much more than every event in the Crew Motorfest, so that's going to be a plus there. Like the lovely New York Hyper Race here, paying over $300,000. The other favorite event of mine was going to be over here, which is going to be Dallas. With that, you can make over 90,000 and well over 100 if you actually have points on Icon and all that. So again, the races are going to pay more. I feel like the longer hypercar races were such a great time in this game. Yes, there is going to be 26 of them. Besides that, in Rally Raid, we're then going to have 22 of these races, which, mind you, is also going to be one less race than what we have in Motorfest. So that's pretty dang insane. The next one, though, we're then going to have is Motocross. So this one, guys, is going to be a total of 15 events. In Motorfest, we're going to have a total of 6 of them, and there's actually only going to be one track-focused motocross race. Whereas this game, we're actually going to have something like the downhill race, which takes you on a pretty cool course. Then we're actually going to have legitimately focused track races for motocross. They're really fun, too. I actually like going over the jumps and finding faster routes on them. We're also going to have the actual like point ones where you have to hit the crates and all that stuff. So it is going to be a nice mix of events you can do. We're also going to have the insane like weird ones where you have to go over like the twirl things, do backflips, hit the crates. So there's actually going to be a pretty fun mix of events. You're then going to have another track focused race here. So there is a nice mix of them. Like I did enjoy it. In fact, I'm going to say it, the motocross bikes in the Crew 2 were so much better than Motorfest, which I did talk about in an older video. The next thing, though, let's now move over to Rallycross. So there is a total of 36 events for Rallycross, man. Y'all see the issue with that one? Y'all see that? Because there is a total of 3 events in Motorfest, bro. We have 36 in the Crew 2, man. Like, that is a big difference. Now, I will say some of them are going to be like the point-focused ones, and some of them might even be like time trials, but there's still going to be 36 different races you can do, some of which are going to be legitimate rallycross events where you have the jumps like you would actually see in a rallycross vehicle. You're then also going to have like the longer type of events where they're going to be like longer rally type of events, which I think one of those is a good example of something like this here is like the circle pit. Not going to be any jumps in that one. You also have like longer events like these stage races here, which, mind you, these are so dang fun. You go on like a longer route, probably something like a rally event, and that would end up being similar to something like Dirt or even something like WRC, to where it's like a longer type of event. And I really do love rally events like that. You're also then going to have the track focused ones. So yeah, 36 events compared to 3 is honestly pretty terrible. On top of that, we are going to have 10 hovercraft events, which is going to be a class that's not in Motorfest. We're also then going to have 10 events in aerobatics, and then we're also going to have 10 events in Demolition Derby. Again, guys, in Motorfest, there is not one event. Like, yeah, there's going to be Demolition Royale, but who actually plays that, bro? Literally nobody. In this game, though, we're actually going to have proper Demolition Derby events here, where you can have, like, an actual demolition race, which is going to be fun. You have those things that pop out. You can crash into each racer. You also have, like, the ones where you spawn in, you wreck each other, the last one standing, or you get the most points, you're going to win. Those are legitimately going to be everywhere. They are so dang fun. I am actually really surprised we did not get a single Demolition Derby event in Motorfest. Like, I really feel like they actually took the class, threw it in there, and went, okay, we're going to be good. Everyone can use this class for something else. The thing is, the Demolition Royale was probably what was supposed to take it over, but it didn't. We're then going to have 11 jet sprint events, which again, that class isn't in that game. We're then going to have 10 monster truck events compared to Motorfest having 1. And in this game, though, you're still going to have like a proper monster truck race like the Wreckin' Havoc one here. You're also then going to have the point-based ones here in like an arena like the one in Dallas. We're also then going to have like the round 4 where you have to do like flips and all that stuff. They're actually pretty entertaining. We're then also going to have like this one here, which is going to be the Dakota Grassland. These races are really fun. They're going to be like a legit set route. There's going to be jumps. And I would say something like that is so dope, man. Like, people would enjoy it. Especially having something like the arena-focused ones like the one here in Death Valley. Like, I really feel like having something like this in this game and not being in Motorfest is honestly a huge L, especially having the class in the game. Like, not everybody wants to sit there and do the same race in a monster truck, a street tier 2. Like, yeah, you're actually going to have races, but again, there's not that many. In this game, though, we're going to have a total of 11 powerboat events scattered around the map in different places, so there's going to be more. In that game, there's only 5 of them. In this game, there is 11. And yes, do not get me wrong, they could easily have a lot more powerboat events in this game, like all over different water areas here. You can have one in different areas, like over here, have a race, go up the rivers. There could be a lot more in this game as well. And that's also something I was thinking about, because in Motorfest, man, you can legit have so many more powerboat events in that game. Like, same with the planes, though. you can legit have way more in that game. Air Race, there's a total of 9 of them. In that game, once again, there's going to be 5, but there's so many locations you can do in that game for the races. And that's like probably the biggest thing that honestly does frustrate me. Like there is so much potential for events in Motorfest, man, and I feel like they're just not adding them. Speaking of potential, y'all remember racing in the Crew Motorfest? Well, in this game, it was called Touring Car, and yes, in Motorfest, there was a total of 8 races. In this game, there is 43, bro. That is a huge difference. Now, again, I understand the map in this game has a lot more leeway for different events. They also added long endurance races into the game, man, like this one here. We're actually going to have legit track-focused events, and that's probably going to lean into the type of thing of having a bigger variety of races spread out all over the actual map. Like, look at Stage 4, for example. That's going to be a pretty dope race, but no, if you don't want to do it, head over to a track and do a track-based race, man, like you have both options. Now, I do understand, though, if you actually look at Motorfest like that you can do something like the lovely custom mode, but again, though, it's going to be the same races for every single car. You guys see where I'm coming from, though? Like, I understand having it set up like that to where you can use every single one, but I do feel like to a certain extent, why not have a bigger mix of races for that specific category? Speaking of that, let's look at something like Alpha Grand Prix, which is going to be the last thing I will talk about on this, because I feel like I can probably keep ranting over and over again, which I don't want to do. But in this, guys, we're going to have 5 events in Motorfest. In this game, there is legitimately 24. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big difference, but I do understand to a certain extent that we only have one track in that game, where I would say they could probably add like a whole new track, but again, that's probably going to be quote-unquote a bigger DLC, so I really don't know if that's ever going to happen. Like, would you guys actually like to see more tracks added into Motorfest? Like, maybe something on Maui, they could probably put like an open track on like the side of the island or something. I don't know, man. Just mix up the gameplay a bit with the actual races. That way we're not doing the same ones for every single category. And you know, that's the thing though. Like, I feel like so many players would truly love having a bigger mix of variety in the events. Like, I have actually been seeing this everywhere on Discord, on Instagram. Like, people are talking about it. And I do feel like there is so much potential on the map of Maui and Oahu to do it. Guys, I'm going to say it again, Motorfest has so much potential. That's why I do make videos like this. I see what they can actually do with the game. I see how they're missing out on stuff on it. And I do feel like they're going to keep missing out on things if they don't start listening to the fan base. That is the biggest thing to me, man. Like, the players know what they actually want. I do feel like to a certain extent the companies are like, no, we know what everybody wants. But if you actually did, you would then be releasing updates players are asking for. People really do want to see more stuff added into the game, fill up the map with more races. That would legit make so many people happy. On top of having more races in the game, add actual PvP playlists into all the events, and boom, you are legitimately going to have a gold mine. Do let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Overall, at the end of the day, I do feel like all of us just want the games to be great. And that's the thing, though. I feel like with all these new updates we actually get in certain games, that yes, they're going to go a few steps forward, but they always seem to keep going multiple steps backwards. And to be honest, it doesn't make any sense.